Hello, and welcome to Farming Flowers, the podcast where we dig into life all around the flower field. We're chatting with growers, soil nerds, designers, and all kinds of folks who love local flowers. Whether you're growing commercially or just dreaming of blooms, you're in the right place. I'm Lisa, and I am super glad you're here. Hello, and welcome back to the Farming Flowers podcast. I'm so excited today. We have two of our farmers from the Central Oregon Flower Collective. We have Patti Smiley from Smiley's Lavender Farm and Mindy Christiansen from Plant the Seed Farm. And both of these ladies actually are in the same town. They're out in Prineville, which is still Central Oregon, but it's just a little ways outside of Bend, which is our biggest town here in the area. And so what I thought we would talk about today, and then I'm going to do another episode as well on flower farming after 50. There seems to be sort of this trend in women later in life coming into flower farming, and I'm one of those as well. So I actually had my first flower farm back when I was in my late 20s in Texas, and that was a whole lot of work putting that together back then, and I never thought I would probably go back to that, but here I am at 59 and have been flower farming here in Oregon for the last several years. And you definitely have to change things a little bit. It's not quite the same as when you're young and in your 20s and can pretty much go all day long. So I think it's interesting that women pivot to this later in life. So I'm anxious to talk to these two gals and kind of get their take on how they've shifted into this particular career path at this stage in life. So let's just hop in and have some conversation. So what I did is I asked my Chaz GPT, and I did name mine Chaz GPT. And interestingly enough, if you have not named your GPT, you should go in and ask it what its name is, because I named mine Chaz, and then I went in and I asked, well, if I hadn't named you Chaz, what would you have named yourself? And it came back and said Finn. So interesting. Chat GPT seems to have a name. I know of someone else who his name was Leo. So just a fun little tidbit there. So Chaz GPT came back with some questions about flower farming after 50. And so I thought we could just kind of pick some of these out and just kind of see what these gals think about this. So the first question is, what inspired you to start flower farming after 50? So one of you gals want to pop in and tell us how you got into this?
Sure, I'll start if you want. Yeah.
Sure.
So I had two events happening simultaneously. I had been a foster parent for children with disabilities for about 12 years and a parent of 3. And I had my youngest moving out, and so empty nesting for my biological children, but also my youngest, or my oldest at the time, foster son, was moving on to a different placement as he was turning 18. So I knew I was going to be empty nesting without a hobby, because I think there is a generation of us that our kids played travel sports and activities, and we were so involved in our children's lives that hobbies went to the wayside. And I realized quickly that if I did not have a hobby when everybody left, all the kids left, that I was going to be sitting here twiddling my thumbs. So at the same time, I'd always had a passion for flowers. I've always gardened and grew things. And I knew at my base, I was a caretaker. So nurturing plants, like nurturing children and seedlings, seemed comfortable. So I just jumped in with both feet to, maintain my mental health, I guess, as I transitioned into my 50s.
Wow. So was flower farming something that just immediately came to mind? I mean, you probably always sort of had a gardening interest, but did you think about other options maybe, or was that something that just was at the forefront and you were like, yes, let's do it. Let's go.
Yeah, I think one of my daughters had seen the Floret series, because that came out seemingly at the same time as well. And I think between her seeing that and going, Mom, she had always heard me talk about my flowers and how I wished I had become a florist when I was in high school. But I went on a college career path instead of pursuing a trade, at the time more of a trade school. And so yeah, she's like, Mom, you've got to watch this Florette series, right? And COVID and all the things that just made it like this incredible fit. I was home to watch all the
Yeah.
series. I was home to take her online courses. So it really came together quickly.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
What about you, Patty?
Little bit different for me. Yeah. So I, was working and, always kind of figured what was I going to do with myself once I was done working. And we had always lived in Oregon and then we moved to Florida the last 12 years, my working career. And didn't really, I missed planting a garden. I'd always had a garden. Grew up in the valley then, which is a little easier to grow than where we're at now. But anyway, so when I was looking to see if we wanted to come back to Oregon, where we wanted to live, and what I wanted to do, I had considered a couple things. I had considered alpacas, and I had
Mm.
also considered lavender. So I kind of did some research. I would come back to Oregon traveling, and I'd visit lots of lavender farms and stuff. And I also had a friend who had lots of alpacas in Florida, so I was helping her. So kind of just getting the feel of what felt right for me and in this chapter of my life. So we got it. We were lucky enough to get a couple acres in Central Oregon, and it was a real oh my God property. And so there was a lot of work to be done on the house as well as the property. It had just been a field when we got here. So I decided I wanted to start with a small lavender farm, and so I planted 500 lavender plants, and half of them died the first year.
Wow.
In our first 2 years. And so anyway, while lavender takes a while to become where you can use it, 2 or 3 years. And so I started growing other flowers that I could dry because I was really loving working with the flowers, and so I started drying them, making wreaths and making products from the lavender and stuff. And it's just kind of, I just sort of let myself evolve into what is this going to be for me? Because I have a lot of interests. I also do stained glass. And so I wasn't really sure where it was all going to land, but it's finally coming together for me. So I started at 65. I'm going to be 70 this year. And I can tell you this 5 years has been, it's definitely, I'm feeling cheer a little more. I hate to say it, it's true, but this is part of my goal was to have something that I could do that's physical. And I knew I wasn't going to go down to a gym. So I'll tell you,
Hmm.
do a few squats out there planting and you get a good workout. So, so I'm trying to find the balance now between where my body is and trying to develop, like you say, different ways to work. I just got a new high tunnel, which I'm excited about. They just put that up, and that'll give me some things that as I figure as I transition with age, I can have raised beds, higher raised beds or table service or something like that. But I'm really enjoying. It's full. There's a lot of work, but I'm really enjoying
Okay, well, that sort of leads me into my next question on how have you both had to adjust if you've had a life of gardening and doing all the work that's required with gardening, how have you adjusted as you've gotten older and our body creaks a little bit more in places it never did and it doesn't quite bend the same way. So are there any ways that you've had to adjust things? I know, Patty, you mentioned raised beds, and I think that's something that a lot of people kind of tend to lean
it. Hmm.
towards, but is there anything either one of you that you
Well,
realize you've shifted?
yeah, definitely recommend, good self-care, stretching, and I
Mm,
try to massage fairly regularly too. I have,
yeah.
so I had that available to me, and so that helps. Just trying to, what for me, I don't do like 6 hours of any one thing, maybe I do 2 hours of this, and then I'll go shovel, so you're not
Mm-hmm.
using the same muscles necessarily, and that's helped. We early on you hate to see people go and invest in a lot, but we did get a tractor, which has been wonderful
Mm-hmm.
because my husband's 71. And so, that just lifting and moving things has helped tremendously. I don't know how we would have done it without the tractor. So
Yeah.
those things have been helpful for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, having my farm as automated as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I invested heavily into drip irrigation, so
Yeah.
that my time wasn't spent dragging hoses watering in that way. I have a knee that has been replaced. So being down on hands and knees to plant is not ideal anymore. So I use augers. I've adapted. I use a drill with a paddle bit that's meant to drill holes in wood, and my plugs, I match that little 1/2 inch paddle bit to whatever plug size, or a 1 inch paddle bit, and I just drill into my ground with my little drill and plop the plugs in. I rarely am on my knees. I try to do anything that to make that easier. So I do use augers for almost everything. Landscape fabric as much as possible to prevent the weeding, because that's just something else that gets me down too low to the ground for longer periods of time. And my wagon. So I don't have a tractor yet, but my goodness, one of those metal cart wagons,
Mm-hmm.
you rarely see me in the field without it. So I can still lift enough to get it into the wagon, or roll it from the back of my vehicle into the wagon, for compost, or, larger quantities of things or heavier things. So if I'm on the farm, I'm probably pulling my wagon.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
I
Yeah, I
use the
think you have to
landscape
find the
fabric as
tools.
well because it really does cut down on the weeds. Yeah, and wag and my little wagon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. Weeding is one of the, I think, most physically challenging aspects
Mhm.
of flower farming. And once you get to a place in your life where it's not easy just to get
Mhm.
down on your hands and knees and do that for hours on end, you do have to come up with alternatives. So, so talking a little bit about self-care, Patty, you mentioned massage. Are there things that you um, and like not doing things for extended periods of time, maybe breaking it up into smaller chunks? Are there other things that you have come up with? Like, do you do yoga, or do you do stretching before you start doing these physical things, or just limiting how much you do on a day? Or do you do like weeding only on Wednesdays, or have you come up with any
I
ways that
just
help with
kind of
that?
listen to my body, and
Okay.
I know if I've kind of created one thing I wish I would have planned a little differently is I have a 5 foot across bed, and that's a little more of a reach than I like doing.
Yeah.
Now with tulips, you're having to dig down
Yes.
fairly straight across that. So that
Yep.
planning that out, making sure that your rows aren't too deep is something. Um, it's just that low back too is another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do try to stretch. So I just listen to my body, and if I start feeling something, I'll just start to move on. Sometimes I don't catch it, and I go a little too far, and so then I'll do other activities as I can, that aren't maybe as physical the next day, and that does help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I took the advice of another local flower farmer about a year or so ago. And so I spent this last winter in a gym. So
Mm.
I spent all winter with a gym membership trying to exercise my body so I'd be more ready for the summer. And then Epsom salts bath, whether I think I need it or not, after every evening I've been in the field. Also, a recommendation from another farmer because it's done wonders. And pedicures and manicures. Like, there's just something about being in the field all day and
Yeah.
just being dirty,
Yeah.
that self care of like, I still want to have nice looking hands eventually, and my
Yeah.
feet doted over every once in a while. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, self care. I also I spend probably 2 days not in the field a week on purpose. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want it to become work. I want to continue to enjoy it. And I think if your body's tired and you're tired, it becomes work quickly.
Yeah.
So I do purposefully just don't even step into the field for because once you step into the field, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
find something that needs to be done.
Right.
And so I try to find something else to take up that time.
That's something I'm going to try to work on for us really in the collective as well, is scheduling out all through the summer. Because I planned to have self-care last summer and never did it. And
Hmm.
so this year I'm just going to put dates on the calendar, just random dates for a half a day to do something that is completely not related to flower farming. Set up a time to go to a coffee shop and go for a hike, or go walk down by the river or something. So I'm going to put those things on the collective calendar as well. So anybody that wants to just have a reason to just not do flower farming, and go get a coffee, those things are going to be scheduled out for our season. So at least, because if it's not on the calendar, it won't happen. And if it's something like, oh, I'm going to go meet somebody for coffee on Thursday afternoon, and then, oh, I walk into the field and, oh, I really need to harvest that stuff. And it's easy to just say, okay, can we just take a rain check and maybe do it another time? And that's totally excusable in my mind. And so I'm trying to change that mindset to where these things are going to be on the calendar and they're just going to be non-negotiable. It's going to happen. It has to. And I think being older and wiser, I'm hoping that I'm at a stage where I don't have that workaholic tendency where I will put myself, in peril by working too long and too hard when I'm not feeling it. If I'm achy, and I have bad knees too, to force myself to do something for Patti, like you said, 6 hours at a time, we can't do it at this stage in our lives typically. And I think we're older and wiser enough that we can make that decision for ourselves to say, this is not really life-changing. If I don't get this harvested today, you know what? Maybe I won't be able to sell all those stems, but I'm going to have to step back and, take care of myself. So I hope I'm at a stage where I can really do that.
Something else for me, I just came up with is like, too, I sometimes feel a little guilty. My husband's a kind of stay-at-home guy, and he's really enjoyed puttering around the farm, and the tractor is his toy.
Yeah.
So it's, he loves it, and that's great. It's kind of our lifestyle that we chose for ourselves now. But a lot of people my age are out, they're camping, they're riding their motorcycles in Arizona. All of our friends are,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like, what am I doing? I'm working my ass off, So
Yeah.
I kind of question that once in a while because I'm kind of like you, Lisa. I'm pretty intense. I get into something and I want to do it. Anyway, kind of trying to find my balance with that.
Yeah, that actually kind of leads me to the next question of how has choosing this path of flower farming, how has that fit into your lifestyle? Because there are sometimes we can be really flexible on when we do things. And, if it's not super critical, you can run into town and go do something. But how the way that your life is structured now, does flower farming fit in a way that is easy to manage?
I think I found. Oh, go ahead, Patti.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, go ahead. That's I just kind of shared. So
I think because I substitute teach, it is a really lovely fit because you don't work. When school's out, you're done.
Yeah.
So it does fit in well to the summer. However, I've been doing farmers markets for the last 3 years, which is every Saturday, and you get to knowing your customers, and people to visit with, and then you feel tied to that market every Saturday. So there has been sacrifices of, like you're saying, Patti, like motorcycle road trips, or like for my family, camping and birthday parties, and people arranging around me doing Saturday markets. And I think that is a transition of letting go of control of all of it and hiring somebody, or getting someone who wants to do that market for you, or committing to less markets. So for transition, so it's a smooth transition between school and summer, but the flower farming can keep you here all summer and missing out on. And family is an incredible priority for me. I have 7 grandchildren now. So I'm having to find a new balance, right, in this stage of life, a new balance of, I really want to spend time with my grandchildren. Where does flower farming fit into that over the summer?
Yeah.
For us, we don't have we don't have the big family around here, so it's just kind of us and friends and whatnot. So, and one of my things of having this is sharing it with other people. I'm still trying to do that more, through working through the chamber and inviting chamber folks out, letting people in the community know, doing a couple events out here during the summer. And that's what's fun for me, is to be able to share and have other people see the beauty, and so that's fit into my lifestyle as far as what I wanted to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the fun part of it, is sharing flowers with our community, and any way you get to do that is, it's just a bonus to
Mhm.
Yeah,
to your
yeah,
life.
it is.
So, okay, let's talk a little bit about the business side. If you both did you come from a business background, and was it easy to sort of transition into running a flower farm as a business, or did you have to pick up some business tips to be able to start this at a later life? Did you have exposure to, accounting and all the things that you need to run a business, or how did you come into that later in life?
Well, I always worked for a hospital, so I was a manager at a hospital for most of my career. Then I did insurance. So no,
Mm,
I've never run a business, and that was a super learning curve for me. I tried to research as best I could, took some classes, but yeah, I mean, I think that's something that it's very helpful to have, because a lot of it is record keeping and kind of trying to track what you're doing and taxes and
right,
all that stuff. It's not the hands-on flower farming part, like any
right.
business, I guess.
Yeah, and with flower farming too, you really have to have two separate jobs, because not only are you a farmer and having to learn all the farming skills, but you're also a business owner and you have to learn all the business skills as well.
Mhm.
So it's essentially two jobs in one, and they're both very different in a lot of ways. So what about you,
Different
Mindy?
skill set.
Um,
Yeah, different.
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I've had business names a couple different times. So getting a business name, doing the tax ID, getting something set up, easy. Like
Mm-hmm.
what you don't know, right? So it's
True.
like jump right in. It's all
Yeah.
good. Um, so I've done that a couple times. So that part was easy. Bookkeeping, I hired someone right off the bat to keep
Mm,
my books. I didn't want to pretend that I knew tax law or what
yeah.
I could claim and what I couldn't claim. So I do have a quarterly bookkeeper that keeps me, I hand her my shoebox and she
Yeah.
separates it all out. I think for and I took Lenny Larkin's business school. Well, it's been about a year and a half now,
Mm-hmm.
ago, and that was eye opening. I also think, like, because we come into this on the tail end of internet and marketing and
Right.
social media, like, I
Yeah.
think that's huge. Like, that is my Achilles. Like, that's
Yeah.
understanding how to market and to what group. And so there's a blessing in that, is I have three daughters in their
Ah.
mid to upper, almost 30. So
Yeah.
I lean on that, right? I'm like, you show me social media, show me Instagram, show me
Yeah.
what should it look like, what's the trend, so I try to lean into help in that area. But I would say definitely that is still my Achilles, like email,
Yeah.
newsletters, and I just don't, and everything says you should.
Yeah. It's
So
that's really hard, because it's not something that we really grew up with.
no.
This is something that's not intuitive for us. And these
Mhm.
kids now that have an iPhone by the time they're 3 years old, and it's just second nature to them. And I think that's a whole other mountain that we have to try to climb. And it's still not intuitive for me. And I honestly don't enjoy doing it. It's just this weird kind of a fake world out there where you have to put all these beautiful pictures out and say, oh, this is, my flower farm. And I skip through the field every day with my flowing sundress and my hat on and my basket. And it's just not reality. I mean, I'm in hobo clothes most of the time, and my farmer's manicure is usually, filthy, dirty hands. And I'm lucky if I wash my hair 3 times a week. So, it's just but nobody wants to see that. So, I feel like it's such a fake front that you're putting out there, and I find it really disingenuous, and it's really challenging for me. I resist it at every stage because it's not genuine. And so I don't know. I just don't love that aspect of it. But unfortunately, the world that we are in now, you have to do it. It's just expected, and it's just how you have to grow. So, yeah.
And like you said, I think getting the buy-in, right? Like, so, you collect all those emails and everything
Yeah.
tells you collecting
Yeah.
those emails and sending out that newsletter and sending out a
Yeah.
weekly this or a Facebook post about that is going to
Mm-hmm.
grow your business. And my
Mm-hmm.
brain just does not attach that.
Me
And I'm
either.
like, no, it's that interaction with the customer
Yes.
at the farmer's market where I stand
Right.
and I visit with them and I learn about their favorite
Right.
flower.
Yeah.
So I have a heavy resistance and have to learn, right? Google Sheets, like
Oh, yeah.
understanding how to, I can just use my phone to take a payment for
Yeah.
flowers. And so, like, all those things were a learning curve for sure.
Yeah. It's a
Those have
lot.
been hard for me as well. And I kind of resisted thinking, oh, maybe I could just, not do that. And now
Mm-hmm.
I'm faced with, I've been doing this a couple years. And if it hadn't been for the collective where I can kind of go directly through and sell through the collective, I would probably have any sales. So
Mm-hmm.
it's something that now I'm working with a group to teach me and help me. And they went through my little website and gave a lot of great recommendations. So now I'm trying to implement those and trying to learn. I don't have an Instagram account yet, and I
Yeah.
barely have a Facebook page, and I'm resigning to the fact that, I really at least need to do that and let people know I'm here. I'm trying to promote a CSA, a
Mm-hmm.
weekly membership flower subscription. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like I feel like hey, I'm here, I'm right
Yeah.
here, and I don't need, to have too many people subscribe, but it's just like I'm just not getting any traction with it. But I don't think people
Yeah.
know that I exist. So
Right.
I don't know how else you do unless you post out and get that out to people.
Well, and the hard thing too that I've been reading so much about is that it takes sometimes 7 times for someone to see something that
Wow.
you've put out there before they take an action. And to me, which is why I struggle a lot with posting so much on Instagram or our newsletter and just constantly like, oh, please buy our CSA. 7 times I have to beg someone to, sign up for our CSA. To me, that is icky. And I know that's just one of the foundations of marketing is you've got to
Yeah,
do it over and over and over again. And I don't know, it's really challenging for me,
sure.
and I'm sure
I
we
agree.
suffer because of it. So, oh, well, that sort of leads me into, Mindy, what you were saying about connecting with people at the farmers market. One of the other questions was, how have you connected with your local community, and how have you connected with other flower farmers? Because I know flower farming can be sort of isolating, and, sometimes if you don't have a social media presence like you, Patti, you maybe, if you weren't in the collective, you would be just sort of an island out there. So how did you, or when or how did you decide that you wanted to reach out and be a part of a group of flower farmers? And then also, secondarily, how do you connect with your community? I mean, you're doing farmers markets, Mindy, but
Yeah.
yeah. So, what are some of the ways that you're doing
Yeah, so I
community
have been
connections?
doing farmers markets for the last 3 full seasons. This will be my fourth season there. I think I've gained a really good traction there, in terms of now people reach out to me through Messenger and to look for bouquets and for events, funerals, weddings, things like that. So I've gained some traction there. Um, Community, like I became the farmers market president, like
Wow.
highly involved in that. I stepped back from that this year, but I'm still on the board there. um, yeah, so I think between farmers markets, community, other flower farmers. So there is another flower farmer here in Prineville that I connect with regularly, who's been doing this for probably 8 years now, and really learning, going out visiting, learning there. The classes I've been able to connect when you take like Florette's class or Lenny Larkin's class, that's a community as well. You make those connections. I reach back out there. And then the collective. So I came to the collective kind of based on our last question, out of fear of marketing,
Hmm.
the idea of selling wholesale to a florist and walking in, you watch all the YouTube videos and they're cold calling, they're
Yeah.
walking into shops, I have this fear of rejection. So
Yeah.
like that would be terrifying to just take my flowers in a shop and then have them go no.
Yeah.
So I needed that. I needed that nudge that this group is doing this. I can do this a little bit quietly in the
Yeah.
background of this group.
Yeah.
And it's been a game changer to yet again meet other farmers in the Central Oregon where we share growing zones and information. And like Patti said, getting that knowledge of selling to a florist without having that fear of
Yeah.
recreating the wheel and doing it by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny how we're so different. Like for me, farmers markets are kind of scary, like you have to do all the setup and all the stuff. I don't know. They're just kind of like not something. And I knew that, in our area, I knew people were doing that. I didn't know you then, Mindy, but I knew someone was doing that, kind of had that probably covered. So I went through the chamber. I thought as a business, I wanted to act like, as a business and stuff. And it's really been nice because we were new to the community, and so it helped us meet people, and it's been a real rewarding. I like that, and helping other things. I've done a lot of promotional things through, auctions. Everybody's calling you, of course, for donations all the time,
Hmm.
but it's fun to be able to support the community. So I enjoy that. But I had connected with the lavender farmers. There's a Northwest Lavender group, and through that is how I found out about the Flower Collective, and I was thrilled because I was feeling kind of lost out there, and so being able to hook up with you guys has been tremendous. I did get the courage up to go in and knock on the door of our main florist here, and she was lovely, and I did sell to her before this, but it just was one florist, and I had a lot more flowers than that. So this is great. For me, it's a drive. It's considering the drive to take the
Yeah.
flowers in and all, but it's great to have a place to take them, and it's a great to not just put them on consignment, to actually have them sold, and then you're harvesting
Yeah.
for that. So, but having the connection with other women, I couldn't, I didn't realize how much I was missing that because I've always worked with women, and there's just
Hmm.
something so strong about a group of women and being able to share ideas, just the support, even just knowing you
Yeah.
guys are out there, is helpful. And so that's just made me happier.
Yeah. Absolutely. Women need to rule the world, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it at that.
And I can call and
Um,
say, why is my tulip doing this?
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's that built-in community aspect that we try to foster here with our collective is because we have a lot of new farmers or new to tulips or new to, some other crop. It's so amazing just to be able to send a text to someone or post it. We have a private Facebook group, and if you have a question about something or an issue, you can post a picture in there, and 9 times out of 10 somebody's going to have already experienced that, and they can
Hmm.
tell you, what their experience was. So I think community is critical if you are going to do something with flower farming in your 50s or beyond. I think maybe that's the most important thing you can do is immediately try to find a community, and that will help you through those early stages of transitioning into forming a business and learning what to grow in your area. So
Hmm.
highly recommend community.
Yeah.
So then I have just a couple of questions on lavender that I wanted to talk to Patti about. I think we're probably, because we have, I believe, 6 lavender farmers in our collective as well. So I think maybe I'm going to do a podcast series on some lavender maybe later this summer. But since Patti is doing lavender, I wanted to just ask her a couple questions and then we'll do sort of a wrap up. And I have a few other kind of reflection questions for these gals. So, so you talked a little bit about this, Patti, but did you already you didn't buy a lavender farm. You had a farm and then you decided to add lavender, right?
Yeah, we basically had a field, and then we
Okay.
decided to try the lavender. Yeah. But a a lot of people grow lavender, especially in our area, and most
Hmm.
of the farms are thousands of plants. So,
Yeah.
I was very small at 500 plants, and I really, truthfully, didn't have a real good plan of what I was going to do with it. I knew I wanted to do products, and I'd probably sell it at the farmer's market or something like that.
Hmm.
But then, as it took a while for it to develop, and I started kind of getting other interests with other flowers, I still love the lavender, and I'm so glad that I have it. But there's a lot of competition, from the bigger
Mm.
farms to do, I mean, oil or something like that. So what are
Right.
you going to do with it? So what I've done is I do make body butter and lotion, and I make wands, when it's fresh, and I um, sell those and just the buds, and I use the buds as sort of a marketing thing. I give a sachet with my business card on it so that
Oh,
everyone's
nice.
going to hold on to that, right? Because
Right.
they have the lavender sachet. So that's been kind of fun, and everyone leaves with a gift, when they come. And I'm really blessed. I have a little studio where people can come out here, and that's one of the things. I'm on the high desert food trail and things within our, big community, and so uh, trying to invite people to come out as part of a tour of the Central Oregon area. So I want to try to have products here and things to offer people when they come, other than just the flowers.
Yeah. Yeah,
But it's
that's
fun
great.
making
And
them too. I like making the products with the lavender.
how did you decide what products you wanted to make? Were there things that you already sort of
Oh,
had
kind
in
of for
mind?
myself, I guess,
Yeah.
I love the body butter, and it's really nice doing the gardening, because your hands are always dry, and our climate is so
Yeah.
dry here. So
Oh, yeah.
it's pretty
Yeah,
pretty
her
nice.
body butter is amazing, I will tell you. It's fabulous and it smells really
Good for
good,
you.
obviously. Yeah, it's good for
Yeah.
you. Okay, so let's maybe talk about maybe some advice that if you could give some advice to someone who's over 50 and they're thinking about maybe pivoting their life into this sort of a channel, what advice would you give them?
I would say that one of the things I did after year one, I did the same thing everybody else does year one and grow everything.
Everything.
Um, but I shifted quickly. It didn't take me years to figure out that I didn't need uh, 500 plants of a specific thing and then
Hmm.
7 varieties of it.
Yeah.
So I think if you are going to go into a flower farming venture, grow 10 of everything, or like, so until you find that niche, but pare down quickly to what your, if for me, farmers markets, what's my bouquet recipe? Grow
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
If it's wholesale and I want to participate in wholesale, and what is the one product I can provide to wholesale that I can do in a mass quantity
Yeah.
and do well? Because our time, our energy is important, is valuable. I also think that one thing I didn't touch on, but it does play into the advice I give, is as you plan out your farm, and Lenny Larkin touches on this, and I could not remember. I tried to find the exact name of it, but it's the way you lay out your farm. How many steps from my
Hmm.
walk-in cooler to my hoop house?
Hmm.
How many steps
Yeah.
from my hoop house to my field? If I'm harvesting flowers, how far away do I want to go from that cooler to harvest to put them
Yeah.
away? Because all of those, that mapping of your steps, that mapping of how you navigate your farm, is time. And
Right.
she touches on it so heavily that your time is value. And so really, really mapping out how I move on my farm has been a game changer.
Yeah, that's great advice.
It is great advice. For me, it's funny. It's like, I guess at my stage I can approach it a little differently. This isn't my bread and butter. I want to try to make some income out of it, but I'm just kind of having fun. I'm hoping that it's the way I approach. So I'm growing everything, Mindy.
Yeah,
I'm still growing
do
everything.
it. Do it.
It's like I'm growing new stuff every year and trying it out. And then I might decide I don't want to. And I'm trying to figure out what the collective needs, what I can contribute that maybe others
Mhm.
aren't, or a variety that I can contribute or something. But I'm just enjoying growing each one. And it's like, I don't know, it's hard to choose. It's hard to
Yeah.
compare it now. But to be profitable and to be a good business person, you do need to think that way. And I couldn't agree more about the planning it out. Mine kind of grew. And so looking back, now we've been able to place some things like I got the high tunnel in a good proximity to where everything else is, and to the water and all that stuff, because
Mhm.
you do clock a lot of miles walking around every day.
Mm-hmm. You definitely do. And I didn't really think about that when I was laying my stuff out because I wasn't really intending to make it a business at the level that I have it now. And so things got laid out where they would fit or where the
Yeah,
electricity was or whatever. And so I do clock a lot of miles now
Yeah.
back and forth between where my tunnels are, where I have to process flowers, and then where my
Mhm.
cooler is. It's a
Mhm.
lot of miles, which I
Yeah.
guess technically is sort of good for me, but I'm exhausted at the end of the day.
Mhm.
yeah,
It really does add a lot of extra time, like you said, Mindy. I mean, it's a
time.
lot of valuable time that I'm spending transporting things back and forth.
Yeah.
So,
I
I guess
even
my
changed.
advice, the thing I didn't hear her mention was, is know what you're going to do with your flowers before you grow them. That's
yes.
the other thing. It's sort of like if you grow them, they will sell. Not
Yeah.
necessarily,
Right.
but so it's good to have that marketing sense and
Yeah.
say, well, I'm gonna, go visit with the florist first and say, would you be interested if I grew flowers, and what would you like?
Mm-hmm.
What do you need that you can't get? Or go check out your local farmers markets. I know people have to drive, like in my
Mm-hmm.
area, maybe maybe I'd have to go to another city an hour away to really participate in one that would be profitable or something. I don't know, but look
Right.
at where you're going to put your flowers, I guess, first,
Yeah.
and
And
something
I'm
I didn't
even
do.
looking long run, perennials. Like,
Mm-hmm.
do I want to shift beds every year? Do I have the
Yeah.
energy and the physical ability to rototill and change beds over, or however, whichever process you're going to use for your soil. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so shifting already to perennials, even though I physically can still do the work.
Mm-hmm.
Even the, direction my beds run. If I run them, east and west, do I have to walk all the way down that row and then back
Mm-hmm.
out that row? Or do I have
Right.
easier access if I run them north and south? It seems like like a silly question, but if I only have to run my wagon,
Yeah.
straight down one row and I can harvest everything out of that row, or am I walking, 70 feet of a row? Or
Right.
so yeah, really looking at where you can save energy.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Well, I don't think I have any other questions for you gals. This was really amazing, and this is a lot of information I wish I had had when I started this many years ago, the second iteration of flower farming, because I probably would have done things quite a bit differently. So maybe these little tidbits of
Yeah.
advice can help someone who's just thinking about it, maybe be ahead of the eight ball with some of this hard earned advice. So anything else anybody want to throw in there?
I think you just, if you have a passion for it, go for it, whatever age you are, because it'll
Yeah,
bring you a lot of pleasure.
yeah, it really does. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for joining in today. This was a really fun conversation, and it's kind of nice to be in the same kind of age categories where we're all sort of at the same stage in life and sort of have that commiseration with the aches and the pains, and yet still the joy of being at a stage in life where we really can enjoy this. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you next time on Farming Flowers. Thanks for joining in today.